Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. The Tony will light the way.
Oh, not only can't we name it that, we'd be lying.
We'd be lying?
We'd be lying. The Tonys do not light the way, although we do adore the Tony ceremony.
Yes.
So anyway, go forward and let's talk Tonys today.
Yes. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnell Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And let's get down to business. So, over the past couple of days, we received the nominations for the Tony Awards and the Outer Critics Circle Awards.
And the Drama Desk and the Drama Critics and the Lortel Awards for Off-Broadway and on and on and on and on.
Yeah. So, what's funny about this is there's such an inundation of nominations. And there was, that makes it feel so much bigger than it is.
Yeah, really. And how many people even know about anything except the Tonys?
I know. And isn't the world excited for all these nominations?
The world, right. But let me be clear about one thing. I'm going to go back in history. When 1976, A Chorus Line swept the Tony Awards, with exception of 2 awards, I think, that went to Pacific Overtures for sets and costumes.
Mm-hmm.
But Pacific Overtures won the Drama Desk Award.
Mm.
For Best Musical. And the reason it did that, because it has a different time frame than the Tony Awards.
Oh.
So A Chorus Line had won the year before because the Drama Desk allows for Off-Broadway. So Chorus Line had already won the award. This year, it wasn't in competition. So there's an advantage to some of these shows. The Lortels are off-Broadway. Some of the shows off-Broadway will have moved to Broadway. Stereophonics started off-Broadway. Merry Lulu Roll-Along started off-Broadway. So Merry Lulu Roll-Along is not eligible this year to be part of the Drama Desk Awards. It's already won. Things like that. So for those, but the problem is only those inside the business know anything about this.
But yeah, most of these awards, like even thinking about starting the episode, I was saying, but all the other entities have announced their nominations too. And It is interesting. There's a lot of like diehard Broadway fans who aren't aware of all these other awards.
Well, and the question is, who are the people awarding which shows, and why aren't they all working on the Tony Awards? That's because some of them are outer critics, meaning they don't work in New York.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who said, I got snubbed by the Tonys, so I created my own award show. Well, that's what it is. There are people in the industry. I'm trying to. The Dramatist Guild has its own awards, and that's for playwrights. They feel certain people have, just because they didn't have $20 million to open on Broadway, they got snubbed and they wrote a great play. So they can give an award for that. So it goes on and on and on. But the snubs at the Tonys are pretty painful.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of good shows this year, but they didn't even get nominated.
No. Yeah. Should we look at the overlooked?
Yeah, please. Let's start with them.
So when I'm so immersed in all of this, but when I read the list, I said, you know what, I can kind of see it because, who knew about a few of these, but the list of snubs, 8 shows got 0 nominations altogether. Once Upon a One More Time, which I heard a lot of buzz about, but I also heard that it wasn't selling well.
It closed very quickly.
And even though it had a lot of buzz, like no one could tell me anything about it.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was one. No nominations. How to Dance in Ohio. Now, I heard a lot of good things about How to Dance in Ohio.
I saw it. It was a very special show. And it's kind of not just apples and oranges. It's apples and kumquats. This is in its own category. It was heartfelt. It was moving. The music was good. The acting was good. The story was interesting. And I was sure it was going to get a special award or a special nomination. I just think there isn't an appropriate category for a show that took on it took on autism. It had people in the spectrum in the cast. They did a miraculous job singing, dancing, acting. The story was interesting and it was very well done. I don't know why they couldn't have made room for it somewhere. But,
Can't you? I know a few people in that show. Could you do me? Throw me a solid.
Well, but it's supposed to be about Broadway excellence. And that's the part that we always argue about every year.
Yeah.
Is that I get it. We have categories. I get it. Competition is stiff. But if you look at this year's list of best actresses, there are 7 people, 7 women in that category. Normally, there are only 4 in each category. So if they can make room for 7 movie actresses who are in Broadway shows, they certainly could have added a 6th or 7th in some other category to make room for something that was unique.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. It's not so much a snub. It just didn't fit the categories. Okay, moving on.
Wait, you said lead actress in a play?
I think so. Is that the one?
Well, in a play, there were 5 nominees.
Okay, then try musical. I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for men. I mean, for actor. 1,
No,
2,
women.
3, 4, 5. 5. Yeah, it's 5.
Then look on. I'm sorry. Check featured. One of them has 7 women in the category.
Yes. Let's see.
I'm sorry. I don't have the list in front of me. I'd be much smarter to have done that.
5. They all have 5. Featured actress in a play. Let me go to musical.
Oh, that's what I was talking about. I'm sorry.
This is so long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes.
There you go. I started to think I was losing my mind.
The list was across town. I had to get there.
Okay.
It is a long list. Best performance by an actress in a featured role in a musical: Shoshana Bean, Hell's Kitchen, Amber Iman Limpika, Nikki M. James as Suffs, Leslie Rodriguez Kritzer, Monty Python's Spamalot. We saw Leslie Kritzer. I'm thinking of the politician. Sorry.
Yeah.
Leslie Kritzer. We saw Leslie Kritzer at the Westway.
That's right.
Sitting at a table, minding her own business.
But are we thrilled that they found room, even if they had to add extra people? That's the point. Spamalot, which I thought deserved to be nominated its best revival, even though it would not have won. But I thought it was a lovely, fun evening of theater. And Leslie was amazing. They could have ignored it.
So if there are 7, does this mean that there are ties?
In the nomination, they don't announce it that way. They just list 7. Maybe that's it. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But my thing is that if you can do 7, you should say, is anybody being snubbed that shouldn't be? You know, there were
2 nominations came from Hell's Kitchen. So yay for them.
Yeah, and it's going to be, which means automatically they can't win all 13 nominations.
Yeah.
Right?
But they got them.
Well, I have to admit, I'm impressed with myself as little money as I want to spend on seeing Broadway shows, that I've seen 2/3 of the nominees already.
Yeah, that's great, because I'm looking at it going, I am aware of many of these, and I have not. I don't live in New York. And just to get to New York, it's
Anyway, and the truth is, some of them don't have a chance in hell of winning the award, which is always a problem.
You said avoiding or of winning the award?
Of winning the award. Which brings us to, what good is it to win the award for the individual actress, designer? Of course.
Hold on, before we get there.
Oh, okay.
Because we were halfway through the snub list.
Oh, all right.
Only because I have a question afterwards. That is fitting what you're saying. So, Once Upon a One More Time, How to Dance in Ohio, Harmony, the Heart of Rock and Roll, The Cottage, The Shark is Broken, I Need That, which was the Danny DeVito,
right? Right.
And The Wiz. The Wiz. You know, so my question is, so there were snubs. What happens to them?
Shows like The Wiz are doing very well already because they have name recognition.
Yeah.
They have already planned to go back on tour. So their excuse for shutting down at some point will be they're going back on tour. It seems that everybody thought it was enjoyable, but not great. And again, that's what awards are. What's a standout? And there's not much in that show, I'm told. I have not seen it yet. That people think is a standout.
Yeah, the article says, we were particularly surprised that The Wiz, the first major new Broadway staging of the musical since 1975, did not receive any recognition, but considering it is scheduled to be on tour after its Broadway run and the show is already taking in more than $1 million a week.
Right.
I think that this revival has already got the biggest prize of all, audience love.
Yeah. Well,
it's kind of like, I mean, we probably unofficially have this, but Broadway needs like a Rotten Tomatoes kind of thing where like, here's what the critics say, here's what the audience says.
Right. Well, and that happens a lot. I mean, Wicked did not get rave reviews when it opened.
Yeah.
Phantom, if it comes back, it won't matter what the reviews are. You know, there's certain shows that become audience proof. That's been one of the big arguments on Broadway is, have we turned into Disneyland where it's for tourists? They have to know what they're, I mean, more than half the musicals that opened this year are based on movies. Water for Elephants, The Notebook, The Outsiders. It goes on and on. These are shows that people would know because of the name from a movie or a book. You look at Kimberly Akimbo, that's what was so hard about the run of that show. It did not have name recognition. So even though it won Best Musical last year, it's now closed.
Well, that's an interesting question that comes up. Can you just try something on Broadway? It feels like the expense is too high. Everything that goes into getting to opening night, it wouldn't be worth it if it's not a surefire, but how would you know it's a surefire if it's new?
Well, you don't, and that's why you're not supposed to open cold on Broadway, except if you have a major film star who can sell the tickets even if the show is rotten. And that happens quite a few times.
What if it's something rotten?
I'm surprised you're not singing from it.
I don't think I know any songs from Something Wrong.
But we're going, there's our problem, isn't it?
I will have them for the next episode, though.
Okay.
I'll be quoting it. It'll be a Something Rotten heavy show.
Yeah. And a very enjoyable show at that. Let's give it that.
I mean, I'm sure anyone who's been listening has an idea of like the musicals I love because they're the ones that come up pretty effortlessly.
Yeah. Well, then let's go back for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Cottage, those other shows, they were opened and closed as scheduled. Some of them did well, some of them didn't. But there was nothing extraordinary about them. I don't think we've lost love. Harmony is surprising. There's a lot of special elements to that, and they had raves for the acting, and none of the actors got any love. And Barry Manilow wrote the music. He didn't get any love. You would have thought that at least for selling the Tony Award ceremony, they would have found a way to include him. But they didn't. And certainly the show, in my humble, less than humble opinion, not only wasn't it terrible, it actually had impact. So, again, it may not be my favorite, but I thought it was a decent show, but there wasn't room for it. I have seen a few of the newer shows that have opened that are nominated, and I will mention, talking about marketing, you're talking about what happens to these shows. Well, there's a show called Illinois. I just saw it. Justin Peck from the American Ballet choreographed it. And it's based on a record album that I've never heard of called Illinois, but a lot of other people have. And like Tommy, they took the music from that, although they play it live. But the show has no dialogue. It is 100% dance. It is a ballet, although it has tap and modern dance and contemporary and hip-hop all built into it. And I got to tell you, if they would start advertising it as a dance musical, I think it might catch on because it was magnificent. For me, I know two people who saw it and said, 30 minutes in, I'm going, I don't know what's going on. Why am I watching them dance and no one's saying anything? So that's bad marketing.
Well, we were talking about this when it comes to movie musicals and how the advertising is doing everything but letting you know this is a musical.
There you go.
They're trying to reach a more broader audience instead of finding your core audience. And because if you said it's a musical that's pulling the work of Sufjan Stevens, into a Broadway house, like, oh, interesting. Because if you know things about Sufjan, you hear about it. He has such a body of work that his fans would be interested.
But that's interesting. But
seeing how it's interpreted.
Do his fans go to Broadway? Do they buy tickets?
I don't know. But you can't assume that they're not.
But that's what marketing does. They do assume.
I'm a fan. I go to Broadway. I'm an odd bird, though.
And you also haven't even bought a ticket to it yet. So the show would be closed if it was up to you.
Well.
And right now it's doing very well, which I'm happy to say. But also it's a limited run. They know they're not going to last forever.
I'm a very busy woman, and I haven't got all day.
And may I throw in my prediction that by between July 4th weekend and maybe 2 weeks after that, there will be at least 14 shows on Broadway that will have closed. And the Tony Awards have a big responsibility for that. When there are too many shows for the amount of audience that's available. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mute.
I forgot.
No, now you're muted for no reason.
That's what happened, because I thought I had my mute and then I didn't. And then I did.
So we apologize to our podcast audience for that.
Sorry, listeners. I might try to edit that out. Okay. I'm going to put a marker in here now just in case.
Anyway, we're unlike many other podcast people, we're human. Mm-hmm. We can't compare ourselves with the AI-generated podcasts everywhere else.
That we are. I will say, since we're talking about snubs and things, not that it's a snub, but I was proactive and bought tickets for Forbidden Broadway. Forbidden Broadway on Broadway. Merrily We Stole a Song. I was so excited. I think I even went into pre-sale. And then I got a notice that they had postponed the run. And then all the money was refunded.
We're sad.
Yeah.
It's an interesting decision they made. We do have the problem. And right now it's still a big problem. It's still a pandemic problem. We have 41 theaters on Broadway. They are not all filled with shows. Yeah. We have had years in which all 41 theaters had shows. But this is also a year in which we were bombarded with new shows in the last 6 weeks before the Tony Awards. There were 2 shows that opened 2 days before the nominations were announced. That meant they couldn't even vote on who would be nominated until after the final shows opened. That's crazy time. The critics were going crazy. The nominators are going crazy. And so what that leaves us with is how many of these shows can we afford to see? And for those people who come in town, how many shows do they see at a time anyway? There are very few people who say, I'm here for a week, I'm going to a show every day.
Yeah.
So that means financially, there will be a lot of shows closing in mid-July. There's only one way to... Well, first of all, Merrily We Roll Along. That will be around. That is a hit. So we don't have to worry about that one.
Till July.
No, it's a hit.
No, I mean...
Right. Oh, they're closing.
July, yeah.
That's right. They're closing, but mostly because they don't, I think, want to replace the cast. They just have the perfect cast. And all of them being nominated, Daniel Radcliffe, Jonathan Groff, Lindsay Mendez, they're just perfection. So chances are they're all going to, we'll see who gets an award or not, but they all deserve to be nominated. And
so when that one closes, and we know it's a hit, but then, Into the Woods was a surprise, when it came out of New York City Center, and then had a run, and then, toured, did very well, I assume. Do you think, I feel like you have to strike gold with those 3 cast members in order to remount Merrily?
Well, the director seems to have been the one who found the magic bean to make Merrily We Roll Along work. The problem is, can she find the chemistry in the cast with other people? I don't suspect the 3 on Broadway are going to tour with the show.
Yeah.
But then we also have, you talked about Into the Woods coming out of City Center as a revival. We also have Illinois that I just spoke about. That was at the Park Avenue Armory, and last second they went, hey, people like this. And they moved it to Broadway. They had an empty theater for it.
They had an empty theater, yeah.
And so, but that still cost millions of dollars to do that. So somehow, and they will end up with a a Tony. They may end up with a tour. You never know what's happening. But it's not easy to dance that piece.
Yeah.
Those dancers are pretty special.
I wonder if they have clips online. I feel like since the dance is such a standout, they should tease it since the initial promotions didn't sell it well.
Here comes the problem, and so many of the shows these days are now putting out little music videos, which is great. However, they cost a lot of money. And I guess they're using their marketing budget that used to go to a television commercial, and they're now using it to have some music videos. It's an interesting idea. What do you do for a play? You have your actors who can be interviewed on television. By the way, we're going to get bombarded, keep using that word, with actor interviews on television in the next 6 weeks leading up to the Tony Awards.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody, at least nobody I know, votes for someone because they saw them on a talk show.
You know what? I have to remind myself all the time. We love Hamilton, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the views on the videos that Hamilton posts, they're not very high.
Mm-hmm.
But theater in general, all the content we post does not generate as much traction as you might think.
Not at all.
No. And so, if I'm a regional theater and I'm wondering why this only has 50 views on it, and then I see something on Broadway only has didn't even break 1,000. That's not, of course that's not the case. I'm talking about urgency, when something comes out and who's breaking for it. And I know it has to do with platforms too, because for most part these videos are featured on their websites, but the video might be a clip, it might be an actual video that was uploaded to YouTube and now it's embedded into the website. So the YouTube views are coming from whoever's watching it on the website. And if you don't really visit the website because there are too many portals to buy tickets from, you can totally bypass the show's website to get your tickets.
And whether you want to admit this or not, most theater goers, no matter what their age, do not buy tickets because of social media.
Yeah.
And that study has been taken time and time again. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have social media, and that's been an additional cost in marketing a Broadway show. I mean, I've worked on a show where the reports would come in every week, and there was someone assigned not just to the social media posts, but analyzing it. And the analysis had to be given to the producers every week. And some of them would say, we had 8 people watch our post on Instagram. We had 16 people watch it on Facebook. It's like, really? You're wasting money hiring someone to analyze this? Let it go.
It's funny about that. Theater Exile has a TikTok account. We set one up last year. We never use it. And then out of nowhere, our general manager, who is a TikTok maven, I would say, has her own channel, started posting there. And, the first post got a lot of views considering we don't really exist there. And I was immediately thinking, who watched this? Why did we have views? This wasn't even talking about anything we have to offer. It was just us having fun in the office. And then I started thinking about, for TikTok, for example, as soon as you open it, you're already hit with a video that you didn't choose. So now that video has a view. And then you just swipe through or refresh or whatever, and you're just that video is going to get a view. So the thing about that is, sure, it looks good that you're getting a lot of views, but those views aren't genuine.
Some of them aren't, correct.
I mean, they're not genuine because you don't know exactly why someone viewed it.
Right. Meanwhile, and while I might as well promote this while we're doing it, our organization, The Farm, We Grow Theater, we've just been promoting our website, which is wegrowtheater.com. Theater spelled with an ER, by the way. So we have someone doing TikTok for us because she was interested in it, not because we were.
Mm-hmm.
And within 3 hours of the first TikTok video going out, we had over 100 views. Well, and by the way, TikTok then sent me a list of some relevant people, not TikTok, I take that back. Facebook sent me a list of relevant people who have actually gone to the website. And it was a good list. It was people working in the theater. So I was pleased. It may mean nothing. It may lead to nothing. But if this wonderful woman is interested in TikTok, go for it. We're all going to contribute a video here and there. And she's the one putting it together. Everyone has their own interest. I just don't count on it for my business.
Well, I just mean like, there's a word. It's hard to track conversion there.
Yes.
Because, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I'm saying like, so you could really engage an audience on your social media, but it doesn't translate. That doesn't mean it'll necessarily translate into conversion.
Yeah.
And,
I liken it to if you go to Disneyland and you really like Magic Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just show you how old I am, right? You really like Magic Mountain. That doesn't necessarily translate into selling a $150 ticket to Disney World at a later date. It's irrelevant. You still had a good time, but it isn't necessarily, there's no conversion. Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
And so part of this is just we exist in the world. We want people to know who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we should now go back to how does that relate with the Tony Awards?
Yes, this is how I was going to pull it back around.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I was talking about conversion, I'm going to go back. It seems like I'm living in this overlooked article from Playbill, which I do have linked in the show notes. They go on to say celebrity doesn't equal nominations. And they talk about, all the things that we say, like, we need a draw. Like we even say this regionally, we need a draw. Now this doesn't, they're particularly talking about a nomination. Right. It doesn't mean that the celebrity wouldn't draw people to the box office. It just means just because there's a celebrity in it doesn't mean it's going to be nominated.
Except the entire purpose of the Tony Awards is to sell tickets. And it doesn't do it. It does not sell tickets. And that is its biggest fault. For those of us in the industry, we love the Tony Awards because it celebrates the excellent work, the talent, the originality, the creativity of everybody we love working with, everybody we know, and every live experience we've ever had that has changed our lives. And, we can talk about all these nominations. There are shows that I have seen in the past month that I will never forget what I saw. It had that much impact on me. And that doesn't mean it should be the best show of the year. But there are other shows that I would say, this is the one who should win the Tony Awards. And it did not necessarily change my life. They're just different qualities. And the problem, of course, with the Tony Awards is after you win one, everyone says, well, did we see any ticket sales at the box office the next day? And the answer is 99% of the time, no. So why are we all spending so much money getting our show on the Tony Awards? And that's my next bitch of the year. I don't think people understand the shows that are nominated have to pay to even show up in the audience at the Tony Awards. They have to buy their own seats. They have to pay for their own people to perform on it. They have to pay for the bus to get there. They have to pay for the food in the green room while people are waiting to perform. They have to pay for the awards. If you are nominated as Best Actor of the Year, your producer has to buy you a $1,000 ticket to sit in the audience. And then, God forbid, you want your mother sitting with you or your spouse. There's another $1,000. So, okay, I'm over this now. I think it's very important to understand this is why shows close. Because if you're barely breaking even, and now you have to spend, and this is the last time I did a show, it cost us $300,000 to perform on the Tony Awards and be in the audience to possibly get an award. And therefore, the next day we had to close.
So I was going to say something about the Tony Awards that I find a little frustrating is it's really hard to find video clips.
Really? I don't find that problem at all.
I don't know. I noticed this with the Grammys too. It was like the Grammys, I think the artists were able to share their performance, and so it took a bit before they actually were available.
Mm.
And I do remember the first year Ariana DeBose was the host of the main show. I remember the opening act. They call it the opening act, right?
Right. Yeah.
I remember that one was kind of hard to find because it was live, but it was on Paramount Plus, and so it was hard to find. And then it was never found. It was like if you didn't watch it live, you didn't find it. I remember having to search for the opening number, and I could find it, but it was like it should have been easier. I think, because if we didn't go see the show, it's because we didn't know enough about it. So perhaps this tease is enough to might entice, but I'm sure that's probably something else the production would have to pay for to just make sure that their performance is, widely available.
So you're talking about the opening number?
Well, just all of the performances.
A lot of the older shows are now found on there. You can find all the specialty numbers from the Tony Awards, and not necessarily the individual numbers, although I have seen, I go looking for them now and then. The problem is CBS, which bless them for even having the Tony Awards, because it is the lowest rated special on television every year from the day one it ever started. So it is the least lucrative for CBS TV. They're honored to have it, they say. It's the reason they keep experimenting with going to PBS for 1 hour or going to Paramount Plus. It costs money. So what they do is they pass the costs on to the individual shows, thinking this is a form of promotion.
That is interesting. Why isn't the show on PBS?
It was for 1 year. Rosie O'Donnell's version. She had all the what she called the non-exciting awards, meaning best lighting, best sound, best costumes. They were on PBS for 1 hour, and then it switched over to CBS TV to watch best musical, best revival, all the big stuff. That was annoying, but at least everyone had PBS and CBS.
I mean, because they could I guess it doesn't qualify. I feel like it would qualify under great performances, and we'd watch it live there, but it would also be there. I don't know.
Except PBS has less money than CBS.
Yeah, I know. I'm just talking about in terms of the cultural, the content and everything. It seems like PBS would be right for the award show. But, I'm glad they have the relationship with CBS. But I think CBS also has to understand they have to do something too. They don't just put something on CBS and be like, good luck. Like Ghost is promoted, the series, so people watch it because they see the promotions, but if you don't, perhaps everybody needs to talk about how to be better at promoting the.
Oh, it's not just, but if you don't have theater in your town or nearby, it's very hard to convince people to be interested in a live art format. That's why the only people who watch CBS's Tony Awards are in New York, LA, and a little bit in Florida. The rest of the country, it's hit and miss. So they can't seem to bring the numbers up. It's the same thing. Why don't more people go to Broadway? Because they have to fly into New York, pay a lot of money for hotel rooms, but pay a lot of money to see the show, hope they're seeing something they're not going to hate, and then eat and then go home. It's a lot of work. So
I hope that more productions take the example of Waitress on Fathom Events as a potential path.
I agree.
Because I don't think they even expected it to do as well as it did. Because it was only scheduled to run for 2 days. Or a weekend or something. And then it was extended, I think, a couple of times. Which was really great. Like, I was surprised. The performance, really enjoyed the performance in the theater. And, can it top a live performance? Absolutely not. But I'm so glad that it was there.
It's very expensive, and it's very time consuming. I did a PBS broadcast videotape of the Tony winning Best Play, The Grapes of Wrath, back in, I'm dating here myself, 1990. There were 44 actors on stage, special effects, and the show officially closed on a Sunday after having a decent run. And PBS came in on Monday, and we changed the theater into a television studio. And they filmed it with, I think it was 6 to 8 cameras. We had the broadcast booth in a trailer in front of the theater on the street for 2 weeks. And for 2 weeks, they videotaped the show, trying to make it look like it was on stage. I'm proud to say my name is included in the credits on that. On the other hand, watching the first 15 minutes of that broadcast was one of the most boring things I've ever seen. Because on stage, it drew you in. He said, you have 2 actors. It was Gary Sinise and Terry Kinney on stage by themselves in a dust storm. And they just captured the feeling of those characters. The camera did not do justice. Now, that's PBS. So now you say, well, it could have been done with the techniques we've learned these days, like television, where you have a lot more close-ups, a lot more moving cameras. That would have cost PBS a lot of money. And PBS could not commit that money. It was, this is what we can do. Right? So they wanted to capture what they thought was a great production. So it's captured now, which is wonderful. But it's not exciting. At least that part of it's not.
Yeah. Well, one thing that might be kind of buzzworthy for Illinois is that it was nominated for an outstanding new off-Broadway musical as an Outer Critics Circle Award.
Right.
And is nominated for a musical as a Tony Award.
Right, because it happened in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
Many shows, like Merrily, We Roll Along, ran at the New York Theater Workshop last year. So it took a while, I'm sure, just to get the actors' schedules set up that they were available to move it to Broadway. and then they had to find the theater and make choices, and the director had to be available. Often that's the problem. Because they're not expecting to move it to Broadway. Maybe with Daniel Radcliffe, they figured we better be prepared, but it still took effort. You have a lot of managers and agents and everybody trying to make it work. And check out the others, The Outsiders, which I have not seen yet.
Mm-hmm. We did talk about it, though.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that it got so many nominations. Mm-hmm. I don't yet know anybody who has seen it, so I'll be one of the first. I'm seeing it this week. There's what were the other ones? Water for Elephants, and what was
the nominations for a musical?
Yeah,
Hell's Kitchen, Illinois, The Outsiders, Suffs, and Water for Elephants.
Suffs, same thing. I don't even have tickets for Suffs yet. Again, it's going to be. What do I hear? It's interesting that these are the 5 they thought were worthwhile. The plays, we have a whole bunch of movie stars playing against each other. It's amazing how they're all supposed to be wonderful plays. Stereophonic is unique. It's really half musical, half play, but they're advertising it as a play because the music of the show takes place in a recording studio. So the music is really part of what they have to be working on, as opposed to we stop action and start singing. It's not that kind of musical. There just happens to be music in it. But there are a couple of shows, and I don't want to badmouth anything, a couple of shows that are 3 hours long. And I'm sorry, I have trouble sitting in a seat that long, even if the play is exciting. So that's part of my problem. I'm going to have to get over that.
Yeah.
I know in the old days I was okay about it.
Especially when everything's overpriced because, a 3-hour show allows you to take advantage of an intermission, but it's not enough time to go have lunch.
Right.
And so you'll pay the markup at the theater for some snack that you didn't bring.
Oh, you have to walk it in your jacket or your bag or something.
And those lines are so long, and I feel bad for all women, all female presenting beings, because these theaters are just, it's like they didn't think women would be in these buildings.
The newer theaters were built under a new law, which required double the amount of stalls in women's restrooms than in men's. That's a law now. But we have a lot of very old theaters. Some of these theaters do not have elevators. Many of them are not ADA compliant just to get to a bathroom. I know there's one theater on Broadway, they send anyone...
Again.
Anyone who needs to go to the restroom, who needs either a wheelchair or they have a handicap issue, are sent to the hotel next door during intermission because there is no bathroom on the main floor. That's I think there are 2 really old theaters that have that problem, and there's no room for them to build a new bathroom. It's not that they're not willing. There's no place to put it because these are very old theaters.
Yeah.
But my point is, so you take out a couple of chairs and you build a restroom. It's all about money. The theater owners are not going to take out chairs.
Yeah, the owners, no.
Yeah.
So the production's just going to have to deal with it.
Right. Or they don't even think about it until it's too late. But the newer theaters, there's more room for your knees in the seats. They have, much bigger bathrooms. I know at the Neil Simon Theater, might as well name it. What was funny about that place is the ushers, we had an entire system where after, the men's line moved pretty quickly. As soon as most men were out of the bathroom, ushers stood there, stopped men, sent them to a different floor, and let women use both the men's and women's room just so they could get intermission done on time.
I have seen that. I've seen that happen.
Okay, this has nothing to do with Tony Awards. I know it.
Yeah, but it's inside baseball.
And okay, going back to the Tonys.
If you're going to the theater, pee before you get in.
Now, the other thing is, the Tony Awards for a while were at Radio City Music Hall. Now they're at Lincoln Center, this year. The reason is when you take all the cast members of all the shows and you put them in one theater, where do you put them? So you need a humongous backstage.
Yeah.
They used to stuff them into a Broadway theater which at that moment may not have had any show in it. The problem there is they timed when the casts were allowed to show up backstage. So the cast of the shows never saw the Tony Awards. They were always waiting in a bus to get into costume, waiting for another show to leave the theater, so there was room for them to come in. And of course, almost every show going to the Tonys, you may notice this, they don't get to change clothes backstage. They have to change them at their theater or on the bus, then show up at the theater in their costumes with the wardrobe people from their show who have to get paid extra because it's on a day off. That's part of what makes this so expensive. They run on stage, they do whatever they're supposed to do in their show and look like they're supposed to be there. And then they have to get back on their bus and go back to their theater and get out of costume. They don't get to see the show either.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So all of this has to be coordinated. Look, at the same point, the producers of the Tony Award, Glenn Weiss, no relation, I apologize, I wish he were, wins an Emmy almost every year for doing the Tony Awards.
Yeah.
They are the best award show on television.
It is a great production. It falls in the category, some of the best shows you're not watching.
Yeah.
I've never, I don't know, since Neil Patrick Harris, I can honestly say I have not been disappointed in a Tony, Tony presentation.
And for those of us nerds, even Rosie O'Donnell, it was just she loved being part of the theater. And you feel that it's a real response to why we do this. And I'll be honest with you, I feel bad for people who have never experienced that feeling. For most of us, it's not about seeing a show. It's the fact that we participated in the creation of theater in high school or wherever, or camp, wherever it was. We understood what that felt like. So then when we see the best theater can be, we appreciate every element of it. It just brings joy to our hearts because we know how difficult it is.
It's just like the bigger opening number when because I guarantee you we were that kid.
Oh, that's it. And then James Corden did a similar show where he said, "All of you, we are all of you," right? And again, if you can Google it, it's his opening number called "Bigger" was probably the best opening number ever on Broadway.
Yeah. And
luckily, it's available on YouTube. It brings me joy every year. I always check it out.
Yeah.
So
very smart.
Right. But anyway, going way back, you were talking about Forbidden Broadway on Broadway.
Yes.
At least their reasoning for not opening on Broadway, there are probably more reasons than they're stating, but there isn't enough audience to fill the houses for the shows that have just opened. So even if, and by the way, let's add something to the insider costs of all of this. You have to invite all the Tony voters during the month of May. Some of them may have never seen your show. Some of them want to come back and see it again to be refreshed now that they know who's been nominated. And they're each allowed to bring a guest. So that means all these tickets, which are the best tickets in the house, must be free. That means you can't sell the tickets. So now your show, which is barely breaking even has to lose even more money because the best seats were the ones that were making the most money. And in that sense, the Wiz is probably going to do better because they don't have to bring in anybody.
Yeah.
So it's an advantage to be popular and not be nominated. How do you like that? They're going to win out. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'd see. I think Theater Index, and then some of the. I don't know if it's all of the Broadway briefings, but some of them will list grosses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, the grosses for the theaters are sometimes manipulated a bit. We know Disney lies through their teeth. That doesn't mean they're not doing well, but they have their system that doesn't follow the rules. So when they say they sold 108% of the
Disney
house,
calling.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I am out here with 17 lawyers. Do you have a
Yeah, no, I'll get in trouble. What can I do? The only thing is where it's only, what is it? It's only liable if it's not true. Is that what the word is, right?
Yes.
So at this point, I don't think I have anything to worry about. And it also doesn't matter. Their shows are doing extremely well. Who cares?
We were just segueing into your ambitious $60 billion renovation plan.
There you go. Yeah, really.
I want to be a part of that.
I wish we all could be. I wish. But it's also, awards are nice. People, we should celebrate the people who've worked very hard. They're doing 8 shows a week. And many of them are doing acrobatics and dangerous things and have memorized 3 hours of dialogue. And I just heard one actor from one of the nominated dramas saying, most shows you go out to eat something with your cast after it's over. We're exhausted. It is so emotionally draining. We just go home.
I know. I could only imagine, I know the excitement of meeting at the stage door and getting to see them, but you also saw what they just did, and you're like, I feel like they should not even be at that stage door. Just go right home.
Right. Just let them go. We feel for you. And thank you for making us feel that all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
And these college students, I hope they get how difficult the work really is. Sometimes it looks like they are taking shortcuts. I've seen, certain college productions, and they're working hard with what they've got. But the great thing about Broadway, as much as and we talk about nonprofit theaters, the Broadway theaters, including the nonprofits, these productions are on top of their game. If they don't work, it's not for lack of trying. If you see, I can't count how many times the set pieces in Limpica or Hell's Kitchen. I mean, every 5 seconds, something new is happening on that stage, and it's being run by computers, but you have safety issues. There are humans running those computers, and there are cables everywhere. So the danger involved, and nobody gets hurt. We haven't had a fire on Broadway ever. New York has the most stringent fire code laws in theaters. And people follow it. It's pretty good, but there are no Tony Awards for that.
And the Tony for Best Fire Suppression in the Theater goes to,
and that you should do it. You should do it. By the way,
I want to hear that acceptance speech.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, if I hope they allow some acceptance speeches other than from the.
Did I tell you I went to, out of high school, I went right to a community college, and we had our performing arts club had at the end of the year, we'd have what we called the Mary Awards.
Okay.
And who was the biggest Mary in these categories?
Oh, God.
It was so much fun. I got a Mary for stage manager.
Oh, nice. That's funny because I thought you were giving me the Southern accent version of Mary, which is Mary, and Mary.
Mary.
In the South is all the same thing, right? Mary,
yes.
Right. So I wasn't sure which one you were going with that.
That'll be a rejected title.
Yeah, there we go.
Mary, and Mary.
Yeah, see, that's because we recognize differences.
I gotta write that down before I forget it.
Yeah, it will not be our subtitle. I promise the podcast audience out there, it's not going to be the subtitle. Anyway, so the Tonys are June 16th.
Yes.
Like I said, if you're not entertained by live theater and dancing and singing, then the Tonys ain't your thing. But I'm telling you,
you're not, are you even alive? Come on.
Okay, this is not a way to end this podcast. However,
no, it's not.
I met one person once who was a farmer in Ohio who did not like music. He would make sure there was no radio in his home. He would tell his wife and children, do not put music on around me. It did not work on him. And I didn't think that was possible. So there's something for everyone. And
there's music for everyone.
And the Tonys, if you're one of those people, the Tonys are not for you. What can I tell you? But Ariana DeBose is hosting again this year, third year in a row.
Particularly her legs.
Yeah.
She's great.
She is. She's become one of our heroes.
Yeah.
But if I can just encourage your audience, the things I've seen so far, I'm going to try to see everything. I don't always get there. It costs a lot of money. But I have been blown away, and I'm pretty jaded about this stuff. Hell's Kitchen is not my favorite musical of the year. It didn't mean I wasn't blown away by a lot of things in it. And Keisha, don't let her last name go.
Lewis.
Thank you. Keisha Lewis, she blew me away in that show. Whether she wins or not doesn't matter. Her part matches, her talent matches the story. It just works. Everybody in that show was great. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not trying to be a reviewer, but Water for Elephants, there's more Cirque du Soleil acrobatics going on in that show, and I don't know how they do it 8 times a week. I literally was playing on behalf of some of those performers to make sure that they would stay safe. It was scary. That doesn't mean that's what the show's about, but you just go, how, why? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And luckily they get paid a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, the thing is, like, on the one hand, we keep talking about how the industry is struggling, but then we had this oversaturation of Broadway shows this year and shaping up next year as well.
And we have to. We also talk about the new normal. You and I have done this many times. We cannot keep investing $20 million at a time and take a chance on winning one Tony Award called the Best Musical, and hoping we can sell enough tickets. Yeah. There's got to be another process. And the old days, first they would, as with The Wiz did it the old way. They took it on tour first. And they built up a name for itself. Obviously, they didn't take it to Broadway level, but they did create something people wanted to see. And I pretty much could guess that they've made a lot of money on tour, and they'll make $1 million a week on Broadway doesn't mean they're making money. So they may still end up losing money by the time the Broadway segment is finished. But then they'll go back on tour, and eventually they will make their money back. But why should it be that hard? You know, what Water for Elephants, Limpica, I hate to say that, gorgeous things in Limpica. It's a very unusual story. It may not be everyone's taste. It will not make money. But it's wonderful to watch. We've got to find other audiences for this.
Yeah.
Because these shows need to be seen, and maybe it is video. Maybe
Join us. I think the biggest regional theater in a major city should be closed on Sunday, June 16th, and they should have a viewing party.
Nice idea.
I think that would be so great because, the theater with the largest space, it doesn't have to like some nominal fee to come watch because this is our business. This is the height of our business. I think we all should watch.
On the other hand, I enjoy
our work.
I enjoy watching it privately, so I don't have to worry about everyone next to me.
Yes, but I mean, like, create community around it. It's funny because, like, I know that there are, people do set up their own sort of viewing parties, and I am very comfortable sitting here too. But if my theater had a viewing party, I would be there.
One of the shows that I worked on that won a Best Play award, they did a wonderful thing. Because of costs, they couldn't bring everyone to the actual Tony Awards. And so what we did is on stage, we set up tables, we brought in a massive buffet, and this is at a time where these giant viewing screens didn't really exist, right? But we rented the biggest screen we can get our hands on, and we showed the Tony Awards in there for the cast and crew. They were allowed to bring their wives and children if they wanted, and being the fact that the show won was very exciting. But you were with family. It was phenomenal. But when you add that cost to everything else, who is going to tell the investors, you lost another $20,000 or $10,000 on a party? Right? And that's always the problem that a manager is worried about. It's like, this is the right way to do it. It's our community, but who's going to pay for it? Right? And so, whatever.
That's the name of the next musical coming to Broadway. Who's going to pay for it?
Oh, who's going to
musical?
That should be the subtitle: "The Business of Broadway." Who's going to pay for it?
Who's going to pay for it? All right.
On that note,
I'll put it in rejected.
Well, actually, that may be the most accurate one we've had.
I know. We'll have to look through all of them and figure out what our overall working title is. But that is The Business of Theater. A working title. Oh, before we end, remember the Tony Awards, June 16th on CBS and Paramount Plus. Set your dates, mark the calendar, save the date, tell a friend, show up for Ariana DeBose, if anything.
And if you can, and if you can get into New York, pick a show, take a chance.
Yeah, go to TKTS.
Yeah.
Or Today Tix. Today Tix has good deals. There's also a handful of theaters that have a lottery system right now through Broadway Direct. And I think Today Tix.
Of course, the other problem with these things is you have to be close by so you can accept it the day of.
Yeah, or be able to haul buns on the train the next day.
Yeah. And the truth is you also have to be willing to sit where they put you. And for me, at a certain age, I got spoiled. So the idea of sitting in the last two rows of a theater is something I'm no longer willing to do. I don't have to be in the best.
That's what the lottery tickets get you?
No, every show has different lottery tickets. So you could be in the first row of the orchestra. But you don't know where they're going to put you. You just have to take what they give you.
I think they should tell everyone in the lottery that it's audience participation, so they will be called on in those seats. We'll be directing all of our attention at you. I know I got lottery tickets to see Rent, and I would have rather seen it from any other seat. The first two rows, they're not the best seats, especially at the Niederlander at that time, but I did enjoy the show anyway. But yeah, like I was saying, that is The Business of Theater, a working title. I am Darnell Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And we'll see you at the theater.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.